Hello guys, coming to you with another part of What If Naruto Sealing Go Wrong Part 3, and I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Chapter 5, A Maternal Shinobi. That night, the Anbu were dispatched to rescue and bring back Naruto by whatever means necessary. The villagers had no idea what was going on as the Anbu made thorough all-out searches of everyone's homes, restaurants, shops, clubs, taverns, wherever they could think of. Among the Anbu on the search was a teenager named Hatake Kakashi, who lost his sensei and master, Yondaime Hokage, a week ago to Kiwabi no Yoko. He was still affected by the event and loss of his master, although he tried not to show it. Kakashi already knew who Naruto truly was and why he was kidnapped. He wasted no time or energy in searching for the son of his master, determined to locate and return Naruto and protect him. Kakashi, with all of the Anbu, had to take an oath of secrecy not to reveal Naruto's true identity and heritage to anyone under severe penalty from the Hokage himself. The Junin and Chunin in the meantime were under direct orders of the Hokage that no one was allowed in or out of Konoha until the search was over. It was no secret to anyone that something very big had happened, seeing that Sandaime Hokage ordered a massive lockdown and search of this magnitude. If anything, it was the last thing they needed, especially since Kiwabi's attack was merely a week ago and practically no one healed from it. Meanwhile, a very beautiful woman with brown eyes, long blonde hair and a most slender and nicely built figure and large breasts was running and leaping from roof to roof at top speed like a true athletic shinobi. Although it already dawned on her that she was barefooted and only in her sleeping kimono, which was flying with the wind and movements of her body, however, right now that was of little importance to her. All that mattered to her was getting to Naruto, and fast. After seeing the names written down on that sheet of paper she found in her hotel apartment, to say that the kidnapper was up to no good was understatement. Taking a break on top one of the buildings to catch her breath momentarily, Tsunade scanned the area to see if there was anything that seemed out of place. So far, all she saw were the Anbu making searches of every building they were going into and the Junin and Chunin remaining at their posts. The search for Naruto had gone for almost an hour and the kidnapper was still at large. She decided to head to where Naruto was last seen. Elsewhere, a few of the other Anbu were searching around the room Naruto was in earlier to see if the culprit left any clues behind that might provide a lead as to where he may have ran off to after kidnapping Naruto. Tsunade jumped down from one of the roofs of the building and gracefully landed down on the surface, running over to the small house that once housed Naruto. Stealthily she searched around the outside section of the small house, searching for anything she could find that would serve as a lead from her. So far she found nothing, which served to frustrate her. She knew that the kidnapper couldn't have gotten too far with all the Anbu in pursuit of him in an all-out manhunt. Her ears soon picked up on a conversation between two Anbu. They were conversing with each other on how the kidnapper used a henge no jutsu to deceive their two Anbu comrades into thinking he or she was Sandaime. That was when it dawned on her that the kidnapper wouldn't have so foolishly attempt to make an all-out escape from the village so quickly with every Anbu after him or her. Most likely, he or she was hiding somewhere in the village. Leaving the scene, Tsunade went to search for anything that seemed out of place in the village. The Anbu were still searching everywhere, with no success. It's been 3 hours and no one has seen either the criminal or the child anywhere. The Junins reported that no one at the stations attempted to leave or enter the village. Sandaime was growing frustrated as he was angry, but managed to maintain a calm demeanor. Tsunade decided to redo her search all over as she ran and leaped from roof to roof. As she was on the move, her eyes fell on a particular young Anbu whose name was Kakashi. She recalled whose student Kakashi was and his status among the Anbu, She was about to take off when something caught her attention. Some of the other Anbu approached him asking why he strayed from where he was assigned to search. He made a quick excuse before taking off to perform his job as the other Anbu went on their way. Tsunade decided to secretly follow Kakashi and see where he was going. As she continued following after Kakashi, she noticed how he was heading in the wrong direction, completely off course from where they said what was supposed to go. Something unprofessional of an Anbu who was supposed to know the roots of Konoha inside and out. Something was up, she realized as she continued secretly following after him. She soon noticed that he went into a small hut of some sort for a few moments and came out with what looked like a backpack filled with additional searching gear. Kakashi then took off towards the main exit port where he met up with two Junins stationed at the port. Acknowledging his higher rank and explanation for him to begin his search on the outer skirts of the village, the two Junins stepped aside as Kakashi hurried out from the exit port. Tsunade saw this and gave way to chase speedily before the Junins noticed her presence and departure. A while later, the same two Anbu went to regroup with four other Anbu when they ran into a most familiar Anbu who was heading towards them with Sandaime. Kakashi, as the first Anbu, what are you doing here? Didn't we just meet up with you a while ago? What do you mean? Kakashi asked. I was with Sandaime-sama for the last hour. That was when it dawned on Kakashi, Sandaime and the other Anbu. Which direction did you see the other me ran to? Kakashi asked as he, Sandaime and the other Anbu gave way to chase after the phony. It was clear that this kidnapper was a clever and elusive deceiver, whoever he or she was. Meanwhile, Kakashi was running through the forest with the backpack leaping from tree to tree at top speed. Tsunade was in hot pursuit of Kakashi but kept a safe distance until she knew where he was going. As of now they were a good distance from the village and Tsunade didn't like where this was going. Soon she saw him touch down into clear open field but she kept herself hidden in the trees as she looked on. After making sure he was in the clear, Kakashi placed the backpack down on the grass and dispelled the henge that was around him. Kai, he said, as the henge collapsed, revealing his true appearance. The man was geared in a standard Konoha Junin uniform. He had brown hair and a Konoha forehead protector that had a slash across it. Clearly this shinobi is a missing nin of Konoha, Tsunade realized. This helps to explain how he was able to deceive and elude the Anbu, Junin, and Chunin. He might even be a former Anbu himself. Tsunade soon saw that the henge on the backpack also dispelled, revealing none other than baby Naruto sleeping in a carrying baby basket with two straps to place over your shoulders. The missing nin looked over at Naruto and said, Yondaime Hokage reduced to an inescapable captivity inside your own child. A fitting undoing for the likes of you. I'm sure I can get a hefty price from any village or clan who'd love to buy your child. That's not going to happen, declared a feminine voice. Realizing he wasn't alone, the missing nin looked around and shouted, Who's there? Show yourself. As if on cue, Tsunade leaped from the tree she was on and landed down on the ground facing her enemy. Her beauty and current appearance, however, was anything but what the kidnapper was expecting. Seeing that she was barefooted and barely had anything on besides her sleeping kimono and what little fabric was underneath it with the wind blowing the kimono, the missing nin fought hard to maintain his composure and not suffer from a massive nosebleed. Upon seeing her face, the kidnapper recognized who the blonde beauty was. Senju Tsunade, he said, one of the legendary Sanins. Didn't expect to find you out here on this night barely dressed. I didn't know you were that type of Kanoichi. Shut up, Tsunade retorted angrily, you're the one who broke into my hotel room. I did, he admitted. Tell me though, how did you know I broke into your apartment? You left traces of your intrusion, she replied, showing him a crumbled piece of paper, a list of clans, villages and organizations. The missing nin cursed under his breath and answered, "Originally, after I found out about you returning to Konoha, I was going to attack and kidnap you while you slept, and sell your body to the highest bidder. However, after overhearing the conversation between you and that little girl concerning Yondaime and his son, I saw that kidnapping and selling the child instead would bring me more money than any Sanin's body could." "Bastard," Tsunade retorted as she got in her fighting stance, "you will not leave this land with the child." "Oh," replied the missing nin, "and you intend to stop me, I presume. All right then, I'll take you out and sell both you and the child." Performing some hand seals, the missing nin said, "Karen no Tsuyosa no Jutsu." Tsunade at that moment felt as though something was torn out of her as she fell to the ground on her knees and left hand while holding onto her chest with her right hand. She was breathing hard and felt unexplainably weak throughout her body. What did you do to me?" Tsunade growled as she forced herself up with the remaining strength she had left. Smiling sinisterly, the missing nin relied, "I took away your super strength. I'd be a fool to think I could directly engage you in combat and think I would come out as the victor while you're in your prime. All I had to do was spike your tea earlier with an elixir of my own creation and wait for the elixir to saturate into your body. It also neutralizes your chakra, preventing you from performing ninjutsu and genjutsu. Like I said earlier, my original intentions was to attack and kidnap you while you slept after I activated the poison." "Damn you," Tsunade cursed, "no matter. I'll protect Naruto. You wanna get this fight started or should I go first?" The missing nin smirked at her, pulled out and placed on a claw gauntlet with long razor-sharp steel blades over his right hand. The missing nin stated, "Since you insist on fighting." The missing nin charged at Tsunade, thrusting his right hand at her. Tsunade dodged the attack swiftly as he continued slashing at her. After a couple of minutes, Tsunade soon took the initiative and went after him. Before the icing nin took to flight, Tsunade struck him, sending him pummeling across the ground. "He ain't so tough," Tsunade thought confidently. The missing nin got up off the ground and looked over at his opponent, seeing that she was in a ready-to-fight stance with her fists out ready to pummel him all over. Charging forward, the missing nin yelled and rushed over to Tsunade, who was awaiting his arrival. Upon arriving, Tsunade jumped to the air and flipped behind the criminal shinobi. The missing nin turned in time to see Tsunade punch him square in the face, knocking him down and away from her again. "Did you really thought you had a chance against a Sanin like me?" The missing nin gave a sinister laugh as he stood back up again and said, "Well, if you want the answer that badly, I'm afraid that your only way to get it is to try to beat it out of me, if you can. Have it your way." The Tsunade charged at missing nin as he stood there waiting for her. Tsunade geared her fist out to strike the kidnapper. The missing nin, however, stepped to the side as Tsunade's fist missed its target. The criminal shinobi jumped to the side as Tsunade turned to face him. She was clearly able to feel her remaining strength leaving her body as a result of the elixir absorbed into her body. Still, she had to fight on, not for her sake, but for Naruto's. Resorting to taijutsu, Tsunade charged at the missing nin, ready to throw her hurricane of punches and kicks. The missing nin, however, dodged and evaded every last one of her attacks as she just kept coming. The female Sanin pressed on as she tried to land a blow on him, but he just was too fast for her, a result of the poison and jutsu he used on her. The kidnapper leaped from her, then dashed speedily past her before her eyes could catch sight of him. "What the? Here I am," shouted the missing nin. Charging like an uncontrollable bull, The missing nin rushed at Tsunade and rammed right into her, thrusting her off the ground and flying some distance away till she collided straight into a tree, hard, with a solid thud. Tsunade struggled to get back up after feeling the brute impact from the last attack. Her body was in pain all over. Tsunade said weakly, What the hell was that? It felt like I was punched by a summoning beast. The missing nin was standing where he was looking at the female shinobi struggling to regain some of her strength. What's the matter? He taunted, did I slap you that badly? Tsunade hissed at him. Ooh. You still have some fight left in you. I'll remedy that. Tsunade charged at him again. Punch after punch, kick after kick, Tsunade kept trying to land a blow on him, but she was unsuccessful as the jutsu as still depleting her stamina. Missing nin blocked and evaded all her attacks. Pulling away, Tsunade took a moment to catch her breath as the missing nin stood where he was looking at her with a mocking expression. Is that all you got? He sneered. If you're through catching your breath, I think it's now my turn to come for you. The missing nin rushed at Tsunade and started his assault on her. Tsunade did all she could to block and evade as many of his attacks as she could. However, it was hard for her to keep up as a number of his punches and kicks found their way to strike her. Tsunade was now on the receiving end of all his swift and highly fast punches and slashes with his claw gauntlet as he just kept coming. She screamed every time from the tremendous pain and damages the steel claws inflicted on her. The missing nin then delivered a round kick at her, sending her off the ground away from him. Tsunade stumbled and rolled on the ground, still she eventually stopped. She was now in more pain than she was earlier. Her slender and silky body was covered in dirt and dry mud, and she had multiple bruises and slashes around her face and body. She was bleeding all over, and her sleeping kimono was torn all over and stained in her blood. It's a pity that I had to tear apart and desecrate such beauty, the missing nin remarked. Tsunade, although in a great deal of pain, struggled to get back up to face her enemy. It was a while, but she managed to stand back up again. Ready for more, the missing nin mocked. You're dead, Tsunade snarled. You first. With the remaining strength she had left, Tsunade ran to the missing nin and started fighting with him again, trying to throw as many punches at him as she could. But to no avail, she was unable to hit him once as he kept dodging all her punches. The missing nin then punched her away as she fell to the ground. He then yelled and dashed toward her, with intent on hurting her more. Tsunade saw him leap and flip to the air before suddenly he cast his feet down in a landing position to land on top of her feet first. Seeing this, Tsunade quickly rolled away as he landed down on the ground, only to see him jump back up again and land on one of the tree branches. Finding where he was, Tsunade ran to one of the tree and ran up it to reach the same height as him. Afterwards, she pushed herself off the tree and threw herself towards him on the tree he was standing on with her fist out. The missing nin was knocked off the tree and was sent falling straight down to the ground on his back as Tsunade landed where he was previously standing. Seeing where he was lying, Tsunade jumped off the branch with her feet in a land position to land on his chest. Missing nin, however, saw this and curved his legs back and placed his feet up. Tsunade gasped when she saw this, but was unable to get away as she landed down on his feet. After making contact, the missing nin thrust her away back high into the air. Tsunade flipped in the air as she now started to descend down from the air. The missing nin flipped back up and saw Tsunade making her way toward him. Before she could land, he rushed and speedily jumped toward her and delivered a solid kick to her chest, sending her flying straight into a nearby tree that she crashed into before hitting the ground and lying there motionlessly. Seeing that she wasn't getting back up, the missing nin took it that he came out the victor and said, "I must say, Tsunade, taking you down even when you're weakened was no easy feat. No bitch like yourself has ever caused me so much trouble." Upon hearing that, Tsunade tapped into a newfound strength. If there was one thing Tsunade never took kindly to, it was being called a bitch. The missing nin turned and started off towards Naruto, failing to take notice of what was happening behind him. With a newfound strength, she stood back up, no longer feeling any pain through her already battered and cut-up body. The missing nin felt a very strong killer intent from behind him. He turned around and saw Tsunade standing there with a facial expression that sent a cold chill down his back. With eye-popping speed, Tsunade dashed to the missing nin and delivered a rock-hard punch to his face, sending him flying off the ground before beating on him with excessive brutality and speed. The missing nin had neither the time, strength, speed nor ability to evade this new and brutal attack, as he was being clobbered, punched, and kicked all over from head to toe at pure speed with devastating efficiency. Tsunade then jumped and thrust both of her feet straight into his chest, sending him flying fast off the ground into the air before crashing hard into a tree, forming a body-shaped dent into the tree. His body was heavily battered and he also had a blood coming down his mouth. The missing nin had no strength left in him to move or fight anymore. During the assault, Tsunade, being an expert in human anatomy, inflicted severe damages to certain parts of his body, organs and nervous system, making him completely vulnerable and defenseless to any attack. Tsunade slowly walked over to the battered kidnapper as he looked at her coming towards him. Reaching him, she looked down at him with a cold, unsympathetic expression on her face. Tsunade was able to see the expression of anger on his face, but she was able to see that his eyes revealed the actual truth to her. She saw the fear radiating through his eyes. He was very afraid. Even though he was trying not to show it. He wanted to move and fight, but found himself incapable of doing anything. Tsunade soon heard Naruto wake up and begin crying for attention. Seeing that the kidnapper was no longer a threat, Tsunade went over to tend to Naruto's needs. Reaching the baby, Tsunade knelt down and picked up Naruto from the carrying backpack while keeping him wrapped in his blanket. Sitting down on the grass while leaning up against a tree nearby, Tsunade cradled and rocked Naruto in her arms, calming him down. Despite the fact that her body was going numb, she smiled brightly at Naruto as he gurgled. She moved closer to him and planted a soft kiss on his forehead. "My little Naru-chan," Tsunade said affectionately, "I risked my life to save and protect you. And I'll happily do it again for you, my little Naru-chan." Moments later, Sarutobi, Kakashi and the Anbu arrived on the scene and saw a heavily battered and weakened Tsunade singing and cradling the now sleeping Naruto in her arms affectionately in spite of her horrid condition. Not too far away was the culprit lying motionless on the ground and in a great deal of pain. "Tsunade," Sandaime called out worriedly as he and the others ran over to her. She smiled brightly as her eyes grew heavier and heavier before being sent into a world of total darkness. Tsunade's eyes opened up to a new environment as bright lights hit her eyes. She strained a little before her eyes readjusted themselves to the environment. She found herself in patient's clothes and lying on a medical bed with bandages around some parts of her body and face, but the pain she had before was gone. There was an 4 needle inserted into her right arm with and a few wire attached to her upper chest area where her heart and lungs were monitoring her vitals. She realized that she was at Konoha Hospital. Looking around her room, she saw that it was nicely decorated and had bouquets of various flowers with Yamanaka florist shop's compliments. There were wrapped gifts, baby accessories, congratulation and get well cards seated on 2 tables. Sitting up, she then turned and found Naruto resting peacefully in a medical baby crib stationed next to her bed. She smiled bright upon seeing that Naruto was safe and without so much of a scratch on him. Several minutes later, the door opened revealing Shizune, Kakashi, in his Anbu gear and dog mask, and Sandaime entering the room before closing the door behind them. "Tsunade-sensei," Shizune said happily, "you're finally awake. I was so worried." "How long was I out?" Tsunade inquired. "Nearly 4 days," Sandaime answered. "That missing nin contaminated you with a massive overdose of chakra poisoning. If you were an ordinary woman, you'd have certainly died within mere minutes. But because you're one of the Sannin, the poison didn't kill you, rather it served to severely weaken and eventually paralyze you. You fell into a coma after the poison took full effects on you. Needless to say, I'm happy we found you when we did after your battle. The crippled and disabled missing nin has been handed over to Ibiki for interrogations after we found that note paper of his. Aside that, the doctors were able to fully heal you and completely remove the poison from out your body. Since then you've made a full recovery and will be able to leave this hospital very soon." "How did you explain the whole village lockdown and search incident?" Tsunade asked. Smiling, Sandaime explained, "I explained to everyone that your newborn son was kidnapped by a traitorous shinobi who was intending on selling away your child to one of our enemy villages and that you went after the kidnapper yourself in spite the fact that the Anbu was on the job. If anything, kidnapping the son of one of the loyal legendary Sannin is an S-class crime. That explains all of the gifts and other valuables found here in my room," Tsunade acknowledged. "Everyone believes Naruto to be my son." "Officially," Sandaime interjected and smiled, "he is your son. Senju Uzumaki Naruto is now his new official name. I already took care of all of the documentations and paperwork. You're officially his new mother." Tsunade smiled brightly on hearing that. Looking over at the still sleeping Naruto, she lifted him off his bed and cradled him in her arms affectionately. Looking at her, Sandaime said, "You doubted whether you'd make a good mother to the child, Tsunade. But after what Shizune explained to me and what I saw for myself after your battle with the kidnapper, I knew I made the best choice." Sighed, "It grieves me though to think that all this time I was so worried about enemies from the outside kidnapping Naruto when also I should have been worried about potential traitors from inside these village walls. And it nearly cost us greatly." "We live and learn, Sarutobi-sensei," Tsunade remarked. "We can't always predict what'll happen next." Kakashi removed his Anbu dog mask and went over to the Naruto who was still resting in Tsunade's arms. He looked at the child with interest and said, "I'm still trying to accept the fact that my master is trapped inside his own child. The irony of the situation is rather unique. It's a shame I won't be able to take care of the born Hokage child myself. After all, Naruto is the son of my master and is his father's former student Kakashi," Sandaime interjected, causing the Anbu to turn to him and stand at attention. "We already discussed that you'll be too busy as an Anbu to raise and look after Naruto, and I made it very clear that the boy will need balance in his life." Kakashi, however, Sandaime continued, "After what happened a few days ago, it's clear that the boy will be facing dangerous enemies from both in and outside these village walls. Especially since that note paper we found had names of a few of Yondaime's enemies. Personally, I'd hate to imagine what would happen if Yondaime's enemies were to get a hold of Naruto. Therefore, I would like for you to keep an eye on Naruto from time to time." Kakashi nodded wordlessly, willing to accept the task if that much. Sandaime returned his gaze back at Tsunade and said, "Tsunade, since you'll be raising Naruto, I took care of the matter of where you, Shizune and Naruto will be residing at. You three will be living in a nice-sized 2-story house not too far from the Huckage Tower. The Genins have already moved all of both your and Shizune's things there. How much is it going to cost me? Tsunade joked, although she was truly in debt to some people whom she owes money to. Some of debts resulted from her gambling habits. It won't cost you a thing, Sandaime assured. I bought the house and it's fully paid for. Everything else though will be on you, except the gifts of course. Tsunade smiled and nodded wordlessly. Now with that taken care of, I'll be returning back to the Huckage Tower, Sandaime said. I'll assign some Genins here to take all of the gifts and accessories here and bring them over to your new house, Tsunade. Kakashi stand guard outside the room until the Genins arrive here. Tsunade will be leaving for her new home this afternoon. Kakashi nodded before putting his mask back on as both he and Sandaime exited the room, leaving both Shizune and Tsunade alone in the room with Naruto. The two women looked at the child who was now fully awake in Tsunade's arms. Life was going to be pretty interesting for Tsunade, Shizune and Naruto. Thank you guys for making it this far in the video. If you want more, please leave a like and subscribe for more video. Peace out.